Hi, I'm Jay, welcome to the workshop, and today we ask the question, should you fit a winch to your Overland vehicle? Now, we're making this video on the back of a recent poll we did on Facebook where we asked the exact same question. To winch or not to winch? The pros and cons, and ultimately what would you do when building a new vehicle when it comes to winching? Now, what we're going to do through this video is read some of the comments and kind of explain their point of view and reasons why they would or wouldn't, plus then the results of that poll. So personally, before we go any further, my point of view, we fitted a winch onto the back of our Hilux. The main reason on the back, most people do it on the front, which is fair enough. However, we were a bit stuck about where we could actually put our winch. In Jersey, it's got slightly different laws to the UK. In the UK, you can fit a winch into a steel bumper, then it's classified as a recovery tool, so it's exempt from the construction law in that aspect. Over here, we have no such exemption. The only way we can fit a winch bumper with a winch inside it on the front is if we get what's called a P30 permit or an exclusion permit, and they're only given to recovery companies, electrical companies, tree surgeons as such, which need it for commercial use to further their business. So it's much easier for us to put it on the back where you don't, the regulations on pedestrian safety and flexible bumpers don't really apply to the back unless you're reversing everywhere. So we made a big steel bumper, popped this in, happy days. Now, I have to admit, never used it. The only time we've ever used it was, like I said in the other video, we were at a charity 4x4 day and it was quite slippery and wet, and quite a lot of the vehicles were on road tyres. They were getting stuck, so in the interest of keeping the event moving, I offered to use my winch. So that's the only other time I've used it. I've never really used it for self-recovery purposes. I've never really put myself in a position where I'd need one, but it was also comforting in the back of my head that if we ever did make a bad decision or an error, it would be there to get us out of the situation. Now, okay, let's get on to some of the comments from the UK Overlanders community. Okay, the first one from John. He prefers a manual tie fall, if I hope I'm pronouncing that right, which according to him should be plenty. Now, it's either a manual tie fall or utilising a high lift jack, which I've actually got one kicking around here. So, you can utilise a high lift jack with the appropriate attachments. This is a 48-inch high lift extreme, so it comes with everything you need to start winching, and you can use these to winch together. One of the disadvantages is you've got a very short amount of pull, so you have to do quite a lot of resets. Plus, in the wrong hands, you see plenty of videos on YouTube, they can be quite dangerous. So it will get you out of a sticky situation, don't get me wrong, but if you're finding yourself stuck on a regular basis, this might not be for you. The next comment from Stephen says it's all down to the type of travelling, basically, if I'm summing up his comment. Yeah, I agree with that. If you're just going to be doing weekend lanes, especially with a tour group or a few other vehicles, there's always going to be someone who's able to pull you out. I'm not saying a winch in certain situations is better or worse than being pulled out by a vehicle, but it's also nice to have that option of the other vehicle being able to pull you out. So, if that's the case, you might not need one. However, travelling solo, especially in remote parts of the world, would it be good insurance to have a winch? Yes. However, personally I would exercise more caution on the kind of areas you go to in that kind of situation, but again, it's always there if you need it. Some people say that you can rely on locals to come and pull you out, grabbing the local farmer with a tractor. That's always an option as well. However, you're waiting on help, so you're losing a kind of the element of being self-sufficient. But if you like that kind of thing, interacting with the locals and coming up with a out of the norm idea, thinking out of the box to get the job done, then it's perfectly fine for you. Okay, another comment from Nick. It says, it doesn't need to be a big or fast winch, as it's not for competition or frequent use. A £9,000 electric winch is more than enough. Again, yes, I would agree on you. We went for £12,500, which equates to around about 6 tonne, which is double our vehicle weight. As you have to keep in mind, if you're really stuck, and I'm talking buried to the axles, you can easily theoretically double your vehicle weight to get it out, because you've got the actual resistance of the terrain pulling against. But yes, I agree, you don't need a competition spec one. Again, we went for a super winch mainly because we knew it's reliable, they're fully submersible, so you don't have to worry about it if it does live on the front of the bumper or living in the back like ours was. If it does dip underneath the waterline every now and again, not going to damage it too far. You could go with a cheaper one. The only thing I would say about the cheaper ones is obviously might not be as reliable. I'm not saying that's the case in every cheap winch. However, the best policy with that is frequent testing. So with every winch, at least once a month you should be spooling out maybe 10 foot of cable or wire rope or whatever's on the drum, and using the motor to pull it back in. That gets everything moving inside the gearbox, distributes the grease heavy, a little bit. It also tells you if it's working or not. Basically, if you pull it out and it doesn't go back in, you've got a problem. So it's better off to find out that kind of problem before you go out on trips than when you're stuck out in the middle of nowhere and you want to use your winch. So once a month, and maybe once before your trip as well. It's just good policy, and reassures you that you have, if you do have one, a nice working winch when it does come to the time. Okay, one comment here. Paddy says, defo get a winch. From my own experience of being bogged for 36 hours in the middle of winter in the Welsh Mountains, needless to say, I've got one now. Again, that boils down to how self-sufficient you want to be. Some people might not be bothered about being bogged for 36 hours. It makes a good story, right? Yeah. But yeah, it all boils down to what we covered before. Are you willing to wait for outside assistance to get you out of the situation, or do you want to take it out into your own hands and just get it over and done with, and get back out on the road? Okay, David here said, better to get proper accredited training in recovery so you have a clue as what you're doing. Also better to lose a big old chunk of that weight that you're carrying that you don't need. Now, I am also a big advocate for training's better than having the best training is better than having the best equipment, so you could have all the fancy dancy winches, you can have sets and sets of max tracks, but if you don't know how to use them, they're no good to you. Now, recovery courses, there is a few places that I'm aware of which do recovery based training for overlanders. One of the places which I've never been to myself, but I've heard great things about, is the Overland Cafe. He's a member of our forum. If you want to hit him up, he's Padster on the forum, and he's been doing this thing for years. He's up in the Outer Hebrides, I can never pronounce that, so it's a bit of a trip for quite a lot of members, but I've seen pictures of him rolling vehicles and teaching you how to properly put them back on their wheels, and also the actual first aid side of it as well, so the kind of injuries that are associated with a rollover, so you can actually blend them two courses together. Okay then, so to wrap up, the results of the poll was 72% of people would fit a winch. That's quite surprising, actually, with all the amount of weight and stuff on the front and what it takes to put a winch on. But I guess it's all worth it for peace of mind in the end. So tell me in the comments below what you think of this poll, what you think of the results, and you personally, what would you do in a situation of building a new vehicle? That'd be great to hear your side of the story. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.